Hello and welcome back to the World Championship in through the ages. Today we are going to take a look at the second one of the 4-player games. If you remember the first one, there ERock was able to win. I finished second, MV finished third, and Tim decided to drop from the tournament and then sadly timed out. In this game he will resign at some point. And so ERock had the best start. I had a solid start, but of course I would like to get ideally a win now. But let's see how that will go. First of all, as always, we can start with taking a look at the leaders and wonders. And we have Pierre and Internet in H3. We have the Hollywood together with some of the theater leaders. Marlene Dietrich and Fleming are there. We have Sid Meier, Einstein, Marie Curie, and Steve Jobs. So a lot of lab synergy, but there's no space flight and no Manhattan Project. In H2, we have the Oceanliner Service Maria Theresa combination. We have the two science leaders with Newton and Nobel. We have all of the military action leaders, and then there's also James Cook, but no Suez Canal. In H1, we have the Great Wall, but no Emichi Castle, Forbidden City, but no St. Peter's Basilica, and Silk Road, but no Universitas. We have Michelangelo, together with maybe Machu Picchu, and some potentially strong wonders. We have one military action leader with Joan of Arc, Barbarossa, and Nostradamus to help with the strength, Columbus and Eleanor as good transitional leaders. And MV is playing in the first position, he just takes the Colossus. There's no Suez Canal in the game, but maybe there's a chance he can get a Sun Tzu, and also the alternatives maybe aren't the greatest, and Colossus can still be a fine wonder, even without a Suez Canal, of course. Tim then just goes for the Stonehenge, could have also taken 2 yellows or Moses plus a yellow, but rather wants to secure himself a wonder. And then it's my turn, and I will start by taking this Urban Growth, but that's the question. I have different options to choose from. There's one leader available for 1 civil action, 2 are available for 2 civil actions, and Boudica, who is probably the best one, would be available for 3 civil actions. But I think it would be not the correct choice to just take her now, because I can, for example, just take Moses plus Ridgeland and Urban Growth. Those 2 cards combined have the value of, for example, the Engineering Genius A, and getting such a value together with the leader just, I think, makes it worth it to not go for Boudica here. But then there's, of course, for example, Cleopatra. If I go for Cleopatra in the Urban Growth, then if I just get any of those wonders, I can use Cleopatra, and thanks to the Urban Growth, I also will be able to use her ability every time while not having to delay my third mine. So that should work out quite well, but you never know. Maybe those wonders are awkwardly, maybe not all will be revealed, maybe those that will be revealed I might have to take for 2 civil actions, or that could just be a bit annoying. And so at the end I could also go for Sun Tzu, but there's no Suez Canal. I would be playing Sun Tzu against the Colossus, so at the end I just went with the Ridgeland and Moses, getting Moses, maybe not the best leader, but together with 2 solid HA yellow cards. And I compared to taking Cleopatra and the Urban Growth, I just gain a Ridgeland now together with Moses. So basically, one resource that Cleopatra would have given me, I get thanks to the Ridgeland. And then I have additionally the benefits of Moses. So, like in the first 4-player game, actually, I will be playing Moses. So that was an interesting start for me into my 2 4-player games. But yeah, Moses it is again also in this game. ERock will then go for Boudica and Stockpile. I think for him the Boudica pick makes sense. And MV might be happy to see it, that he indeed has a chance now to go for Sun Tzu and maybe apply some military pressure together with the Colossus. Now it's Tim's turn, he goes for Cleopatra. I think she works quite well for him together with the Stonehenge here. He starts by building the second lab, which is interesting because maybe with the Stonehenge you might want to build a third mine and 1 step of the Stonehenge. But one reason why he might go with the lab here is that that allows him to take the Engineering Genius, which is of course a fine card to take for 1 civil action. On the other hand, with having Cleopatra and the 4-step wonder with the Stonehenge, maybe it could even be fine to just pass on it here, but that then again also the opponents, in this case probably I, would be able to take the Engineering Genius, so I can understand that he wants to take it here, and then building the lab first should be the correct play. Now it's my turn, I go for Moses. I first of all have to answer the question whether I want to build my mine or my second lab first. And then there's another interesting question to answer, because the wonder that is available for 1 civil action is the Colosseum, but then there's also my beloved Silk Road coming down the row. and which I maybe could go for at the next turn if I don't commit to any wonder yet. ERock also doesn't have a wonder, but I think taking Silk Road for 3 civil actions would be quite expensive. Maybe he will do it. He has even the stockpile, so a nice little synergy with the Silk Road, but I do think I might have a chance to get the Silk Road at the next turn. But I still might have to take the Silk Road for 2 civil actions, so that is somewhat expensive. And also, then I either have to increase my population twice this turn, going into consumption very early, or take another HA yellow card, which isn't the most efficient yellow card usage. Sometimes, in some situations, maybe I would be fine to do that in order to achieve getting the Silk Road as a first wonder. But we also shouldn't forget that Envy went for Sun Tzu plus Colossus, so there's a good chance that maybe this game will turn out to be a bit military heavy, especially because you can see that Barbarossa is already revealed. Regardless of what turn I will go for, he will stay on 3 civil actions for ERock, and then drops very likely to 2 civil actions for MV, and with him having the Colossus and Sun Tzu, I think it's quite likely that he will go for Barbarossa, and then it's of course even more likely that the game might turn out to be quite military heavy, and with that I think going for the more greedy play with the Silk Road is the wrong choice here, and just securing myself the Colosseum, the additional military action and Happy Face is definitely the better choice here, and also generally in 4-player games I think the Colosseum is a very solid wonder. With going for the Colosseum I will start with building my second lab. I think the additional science is just worth a bit more than the additional resource, especially if you have a wonder that you don't necessarily want to rush, and so I increase my population and take the Colosseum. I draw a colonization card and a blunder. ERock goes for Boudica, increases his population, builds a mine, and then takes the urban growth. Maybe doesn't want to play the stockpile yet, which he could have done to maybe have a chance to play it with the Silk Road later on, because he might now want to go for the Silk Road, of course. MV Seeds, the development of politics, is revealed, so he has now drawn already a lot of cards. As expected, he will indeed go for Barbarossa. I, by the way, have drawn another defense card, the Fighting Band, Tactic, and the Pestilence. MV will secure himself Barbarossa, and he could have built a second lair, but instead he also wants to have the Code of Laws. He also reveals the Fighting Band tactic, so that might be the tactic that ends up getting upgraded at the end. Now it's Tim's turn. He increases his population, builds the third mine, uses Cleopatra to build a step of the Stonehenge, and then uses the Engineering Genius, so just uses his civil actions very efficiently. After having spent a civil action on the Engineering Genius A, I think that's probably the correct choice, even though maybe some of those cards like Masonry or Nostradamus, who I actually will go for now, might have been interesting for him as well. And yeah, I think I have to go for Nostradamus here. There are other potentially interesting cards. Engineering Genius is worth quite a bit together with the Colosseum. Maybe I could go for the Masonry. But yeah, MV has now gone for Colossus, Barbarossa, and I think having Nostradamus might just make my life a lot easier. And also soon I will have a third military action. With that I hopefully will be able to seed relatively often with Nostradamus, and then overall get a very nice amount of value out of him. Additionally, I think Moses can also just be fine as maybe comparable to Alex, just use him for a bit of a discount and then replace him very early, and that's what I'm doing here now. I increase my population, then sadly I don't have the civil action to increase my population again, so Moses hasn't given me too much value, but I was able to take him together with those 2 HA yellow cards, and so I think it still worked out quite well, and now I will be able to switch to Nostradamus as a strong H1 leader, and I also built my third mine. I then reveal the Fighting Band tactic and keep the Pestilence, an event to seed, and a colonization card in hand. I draw yet again a colonization card. ERock offers me a naval trade agreement pact. I would get +1 to colonization, he would get 2 additional blue tokens. I rejected it because it will still take a while until the event deck flips. There's no Suez Canal in the game as a big payoff for colonies. And ERock, I thought, might want to go for the Silk Road now, and with that maybe having some additional blue tokens could actually be quite helpful for him to struggle less with building the Silk Road. So I rejected the pact. He will indeed go for the Silk Road, the Masonry, which makes sense, and then interestingly also the Engineering Genius. I'm not sure if it is the correct choice, because he can't use it that efficiently on the Silk Road, and with having the Silk Road maybe he has to be careful and play a very civil action efficiently. Of course, maybe if he gets a second wonder and can use the Engineering Genius with the Silk Road bonus, it can potentially be worth quite a lot. Maybe he also didn't want to give MV access to this Engineering Genius, so I think it's not a bad move to take it, but maybe it's a little bit civil action inefficient, or maybe it could cause some issues for him with now also having committed to the Silk Road. MV seeds, and I of course see what he seeds. It's the Barbarians, a potentially problematic event for me, because if I start seeding with Nostradamus, I might have the culture lead. MV will start building on the Colossus, build with the development of Civil Life, he built the second lab, and then he takes the Irrigation and the Alchemy, which is interesting. He has already Code of Laws, so maybe it could have been an idea to, instead of taking the Alchemy, just taking the Cultural Heritage, then start by going for Irrigation, finishing Colossus, and then maybe getting the Code of Laws going earlier compared to having this Alchemy available. But maybe he also didn't want to give the Alchemy to Tim, which would make it easier for him to use Cleopatra even more often. Now it's Tim's turn, he increases his population, and then, interestingly, he just takes the iron for 3 civil actions here, and we have of course seen that relatively often even in those high-level games that iron is taken for 3 civil actions. In this situation, I'm not sure if it is the correct choice, because with MV having this setup with Colossus and Barbarossa, the game could turn out to be a bit military heavy very quickly, and then it could maybe be a bit problematic for Tim to invest into that iron. On the other hand, of course, he has some additional signs from the Stonehenge, and it can still turn out to be very strong for him. But here I thought maybe just using Cleo, which he doesn't do now, and that of course is also a bit of a cost, and maybe even just finishing the Stonehenge, taking yellow card, and of course maybe not having projects for Cleo at the next turn, which is a bit problematic, might have been better. But if he is able to get this iron going quickly and gets away with it, it might still be a strong pick for 3 civil actions. Now it's my turn, I see the Pestilence, I at least have saved a little bit of food with Moses, and I will have knowledge about it, which is an advantage, so I seed. The development of planning is revealed, and I make an interesting choice here, because the options for the development of planning are development of religion, markets, and science, and as you can see, I actually go for the development of markets here, and also use the development of civil life to increase my population. And there are some reasons why I went for the development of markets here. First of all, of course, I don't need the happy face of the religion at the moment, but you might argue, well, at some point I will lose the 2/8 yellows at the end of the age, and then it might be quite nice to have the religion. Also, it just cost me some culture. However, at this point, I was actually eyeing the Great Wall that is coming down the road. It will be expensive, but I felt like if MV decides to indeed upgrade his fighting band tactic, then the Great Wall could be quite a strong wonder to have. ERock can't take it, MV could maybe take it, but it would be quite expensive. Tim might not be able to take it unless the card row moves very quickly, so there's a decent chance I will be able to take the Great Wall at the next turn. And that might just be quite a strong wonder to have here. And if I indeed go for the Great Wall, then I might not need the happy face of the religion, because I will get another happy face from the Great Wall. Additionally, the 2 resources allow me to just finish the Colosseum here, which also makes it that I can spend my civil actions more efficiently and get an additional draw, meaning that I increase my chance of getting another event for Nostradamus. If I wouldn't have gotten the additional resources, I only would be able to build 2 stages, and I would be forced to take 2 yellow cards. Maybe not too bad, there are some decent ones in the row, but I still felt like I rather want to play civil action efficiently, especially with the idea of going for the Great Wall here, and without the additional resources of the development of markets here. I do think then maybe the project of the Great Wall just gets too ambitious. It is already ambitious, but I felt like now it maybe will be doable. Might still end up being a little bit too slow, but long term, or might still be a big help in H2. But without the development of markets and taking the religion, I think then the door is closed for this option, then it might just be too expensive. So because of that, I went for the development of markets, and with my last civil action, I then chose to take the cultural heritage, as I felt like some additional science is the most valuable thing for me here. I draw 3 cards and sadly don't get any event, but some more tactics that I could use. ERock takes the free religion, develops the masonry, builds 2 steps of the Silk Road, builds the second lab using the urban growth A with the Silk Road bonus, and then increases his population to get out of corruption. Now it's MV's turn, he seeds and opens the development of settlement. He will now go for Barbarossa. I think he took food from the development of market, so also no free religion. He then elects Barbarossa, takes the swordsman. Now the fighting band tactic got upgraded. He will go for swordsman and goes for 2 activations immediately, meaning he is already at 7 strength and puts some pressure on his opponents. Luckily I have Nostradamus, so far I can handle the strength push very easily. Now it's Tim's turn. He builds a warrior, builds another warrior, so that he at least can threaten to defend if he would have 2 defense cards. He then builds the stage of the Stonehenge using Cleo, goes for the monarchy. Now he should be very likely able to defend. Now he only needs 1 defense card, and he also goes for Cleopatra. Can maybe elect her at the next turn after having finished the Stonehenge with Cleopatra. Now it's my turn. I can't push with Nostradamus. As you can see, I will take the knights here, just because it's not bad to have them available, especially with those tactics, but as the fighting band tactic will be available to copy soon, while I could go for knight and go for the medieval army tactic, I actually decided to follow through with my plan of going for the Great Wall. Not entirely sure if it is the correct choice. Of course, also I forgot to mention what got seeded. MV seeded the Wealthy Territory 1 into the deck, so a colony is in there. And maybe I could just go for knights and be fine with the medieval army tactic, but I think the Great Wall is just a wonder with some very big potential. Well, there's the ocean liner service in H2. Apart from it, I mean, railroad is also quite strong, but when those wonders are late, it could be fine to have the Great Wall lying around and just maybe finish that at the beginning of H2 or maybe even middle of H2. And so I decided that I want to have the Great Wall here, maybe also take it away potentially from MV, who could maybe at his turn otherwise finish the Colossus and take the Great Wall. And so I take the Great Wall. Maybe I could consider the warfare here, but I have already the 3rd military action from the Colosseum, and so instead I will just build a step of the Great Wall. I keep this tactic available and get some draws. The Foray, another colonization card in the historic territory. ERock seeds, he puts the cultural influence into the deck. The development of crafts are revealed, which I was happy to see, as even more resources will be helpful for me to somehow get this Great Wall project done. ERock takes the 2nd copy of Iron, uses Boudica's resources in order to build a warrior, builds another warrior, so that he at least is able to threaten to defend against MV and then finishes the Silk Road. Now it's MV's turn. He will seed, so the event deck flips now. He seeds the Good Harvest into the deck, which of course is a useful event with Barbarossa. He gets even more food by the development of agriculture, and with both agriculture and crafts being revealed, he actually is able to go for quite a bit of a strength push here, because now he will be able to finish the Colossus, but not only that, he also has enough resources now, thanks to the development of crafts, to go for another swordsman, and is out of the sudden sitting at 13 strength. He has of course only 1 card in hand, but it's certainly possible that he maybe kept an aggression and might be able to deploy it at the next turn. He then takes a rich land, which he can use to go for a free farm upgrade at one of the following turns. Now it's Tim's turn. He takes the swordsman for 2, develops them, elects Eleanor, builds 1, finishes the Stonehenge, goes for an upgrade, and with being at 8 strength and 9 even, he again only needs 1 defense card to defend and should be safe. But here we can see what I meant by that maybe taking the iron for 3 could be problematic. Now he has taken it for 3, but now it's already quite late, and with it being that late and with him not having been able to get the upgrades going quickly, I think now in hindsight that would have been maybe better to use the civil actions a bit differently at that turn. But maybe there was a chance that he could have managed to get those going quickly. Now it's my turn, and I decide to push here the Historic Territory 1, which we'll have to see if it will be a good one for me, but I just mainly wanted to push. And I wanted to push because there's one event in the deck that I felt like would really be, could have the potential to be quite a game changer for me. There would also be an event that would be quite bad, and that is the Barbarians, so I could just lose a population. There's also one event that I don't have knowledge about, so potentially another strength event that I could get hit by, even though I'm not the weakest, of course. ERock is behind me in strength when we consider who is the weakest. And yeah, but the one event that could help me is the Wealthy Territory 1. I win the tiebreakers during my turn, and I will be able to rebuild immediately. If that colony is revealed at any other's turn, then I might not be able to bid as high, at least not without any risk, while if it should be revealed now, and me winning the tiebreakers, maybe I have a chance to win it, and those 6 additional resources could just be so big for me and could really help me to get that Great Wall going, while also being able to get some warriors. And with that, I decided to push here, even though I could maybe get punished by some events. And as you can see, I do actually get lucky here, and I am able to win the Wealthy Territory for a bid of 3. MV not willing to bid even more, maybe doesn't have a defense card, maybe just was willing to go for 1 swordsman to not lose too much military pressure. But that will now be extremely big for me. I will win that for 1 warrior, and the 6 additional resources are just awesome for me. So I got quite a bit lucky here and was very happy about being able to win this colony. Now, when I won this colony, I thought, okay, I might want to finish the Great Wall, then I could maybe build 2 warriors, but that wouldn't be enough to make me safe from an aggression. But there are ways to make me safe from an aggression, but for that I need a 4th military action, and then I'm able to actually build 4 warriors, while still having just enough resources left to finish the Great Wall at the upcoming turn. The question is, how do I want to get my 4th military action? There are 3 different ways for it on the road. There's a theocracy, there's a warfare, and there's a monarchy. As I will have enough happy phases with the Great Wall, I didn't really consider the theocracy as much and mainly decided between warfare and monarchy. And I mean, the monarchy would give me an additional action immediately, it's not bad, and thanks to it giving me the action also already at this turn, that would actually mean that I would be able to take the breakthrough, which I would not be able to take if I go for the warfare, so that of course makes the monarchy quite lucrative. On the other hand, I have no code of laws. I also might not have enough science to easily invest into code of laws after investing into the monarchy, so I might be stuck on 5 civil actions for a while. Of course, if I don't go for it, I might just be stuck on 4 civil actions. But there's a specific leader in the game, which I think plays quite a part in such a kind of decision, and that is Robespierre. Robespierre can just be a leader that can be quite a game changer, and if he is in the game, it can be worthwhile to maybe set yourself up that potentially he can indeed be a game changer for you. And with that, I didn't like it to commit to an H1 government form here, and instead I rather increased my population, went for the warfare, even though that means missing out on the breakthrough, and then I can just build 4 warriors, getting me out of corruption, going up to 7 strength. Thanks to the Nostradamus bonus, I am not in danger of any aggression, and I actually have just enough resources left to finish the Great Wall, so I can finish the Great Wall. I will be able to copy to the upgraded fighting band tactic, so I soon will get another 6 strength. And with that, I felt now very comfortable, and all of that is only possible thanks to winning the Wealthy Territory, which I think is indeed quite a game changer here. And yeah, so I was extremely happy that I was able to win that, and that makes it now a lot easier to go get that Great Wall going. And yeah, so I was quite happy about that. Also, one reason, and it was also an important reason to go for the warfare, is the 1 strength. If I don't have that 1 strength, then I'm also with Nostradamus at 6 plus 3, 9, and after my turn I lose the tiebreaker against Tim, meaning that if the barbarians should be revealed, I could lose a population, which would be quite annoying. It's ERock's turn. He develops the warfare, builds a warrior for 3 with Boudica, takes the Britain Circuses, maybe it might be needed for him to destroy the religion and put it into Bread and Circuses, or maybe he just wants to have it available to get some additional strength. He goes up to 9 strength, so all of the players might be safe from an aggression. Envy, with that, it decides to seed, puts the Vast Territory 1 into the deck, so another important colony, and a good harvest is revealed. He increases his population. Normally, soon he might need to do this anyway to not have an uprising issue. He then upgrades the farm and takes the urban growth in the breakthrough. Now it's Tim's turn. He seeds and opens the Reign of Terror. That was the one event that I didn't have knowledge about. ERock will lose a population. We can see that the 1 additional strength of the warfare matters quite a bit here, even though, of course, ERock would have still been the one to lose it, actually, because I would win the tiebreaker against him. But yeah, nonetheless, not bad. And he will lose a population, which is hurtful for him. Especially the pestilence is also coming, so he might lose another population soon, and now the pestilence might really hurt him. Tim increases his strength, copies the tactic, upgrades the warrior, is now at 12 strength, takes the frugality and the alchemy. Now it's my turn. I could Seed of Ray, and I will go up to 13 strength. Tim can't that easily go for more strength. He might be able to do it, but with the pestilence coming, it could be a bit difficult for him to put another worker into the military. So the Foray generally could be a worthwhile event to seed, but the thing is, 2 out of the 3 events would be quite bad for me here. One of them would be the Barbarians, which I would lose when I seed now, and I don't have a free population, and the other would be the Pestilence, because this turn I will be able to increase my population, and the Pestilence would be quite annoying to see before my turn. So I passed on seeding here, and with my 4 civil actions I think the turn is completely straightforward. I copy the upgraded fighting band tactic, I increase my population for the Pestilence, and then I finish the Great Wall going up to 13 plus 3 strength. I end up drawing 2 cards here, and the Inhabited Territory and another colonization card. Also, I think Tim put new deposits into the deck, so he just went for some iron upgrades, so that makes sense. ERock also goes for some iron upgrades. Goes for Joan of Arc. I think she can be quite helpful for him here, increases his population, builds a warrior, and doesn't find the civil actions to play the stockpile here. Which is of course a bit unfortunate for him. MV offers an open borders agreement to Tim. Both of their leaders profit quite heavily from military actions, so I guess it makes sense that he offered it to him. For ERock and me, maybe we would have cancelled it at our turns or something. MV takes the last copy of Iron, which of course means that he will go for a bit of an H1 economy here, but it might still be worthwhile. He uses Barbarossa and then disbands a warrior to just get another population out without having to use a civil action. Now it's Tim's turn, he seeds, and a Pestilence is revealed. I was kinda hoping for Barbarians, because at the moment ERock would get hit by it, but when I seed during my turn, which I kinda want to do, then I have again more culture. I don't get hit by it, but it would be kinda nice to see ERock loosening another population. But instead a Pestilence is revealed, which of course also costs him a population, but he's not the only one getting hit by that. Tim will go for the Forbidden City, a nice combination together with the Monarchy, increases his population with the Frugality, goes for an Iron upgrade and increases his population again. Now it's my turn. The question is if I should seed, because it could be considered to just not seed, to not get the culture, and then it's very likely that ERock gets hit by the Barbarians. However, it's a 4-player game. I would only do damage to 1 player. And I do think for myself it's quite nice to seed here, especially if the event deck otherwise flips before my next turn, because getting that Foray in the next event deck could give me quite a boost. The 3 additional resources or food could make quite a difference for me. And so I decided to seed, because if the Barbarians should not be revealed, then the other event is the Cultural Influence, and with the additional culture that ERock would gain from that, then again he might get hit by the Barbarians anyway, so it's basically now still a coin flip, and he might get hit by Barbarians anyway, and so I decided to push the Foray into the deck, hoping that no Barbarians would be revealed. First of all, H2 starts, I seed, and the Barbarians are revealed, so now sadly I have the most culture, but at least I don't lose anything. And yeah, this turn I go for the Alchemy. I could also consider going for Irrigation, because at the moment I'm just stuck at 3 food, so already 1 additional food would allow me to increase my population. However, I was also hoping that I might be able to win the Foray, in which case I might be able to get a 1 food from elsewhere. And also Tim, at his last turn, I forgot to mention it, seeded a Scientific Breakthrough into the deck, and with that, and that soon being revealed, I felt like investing into Alchemies now should be a good decision. I don't want to just take cards, I want to invest into something here to not be overloaded later in H2 with things that I need to fix. So I take the Alchemy here, develop it, go for an upgrade, and then take the Patriotism. Could have still taken the Irrigation, but MB has already Irrigation, so I should be able to go for the Selective Breeding at some point, and with the Foray I should be able to get 1 more population out. Then I think I have a fine amount population for now. And with that I am just fine with waiting for selective breeding here, and instead rather wanted to have some additional resources, so if maybe I win one of the colonies that might be revealed soon, I can maybe rebuild a bit more easily. I draw some cards, the migration, so I have something to seed, as well as another colonization card. ERock, with losing the population and also having lost the 2 yellows to the end of the age, has to destroy something to not have an uprising issue. He then upgrades his mines, at least that he has going now, and takes the breakthrough, which is nice together with the Silk Road. Now it's Envy's turn, he seeds, and the last one of those H1 events is revealed, the Cultural Influence. He seeded one of the cards that he drew with the Colossus, the Crime Wave. Envy goes for Iron now, goes for 1 upgrade, another upgrade to Alchemy, has now his H1 economy, but with the Ritual Land he will be able to go for the last 2 upgrades at the next turn, and if he then maybe manages to go for a nice H2 wonder, maybe his position will be strong enough, but otherwise just having H1 upgrades can maybe lose a bit of steam when we are entering H3. Tim offers trade routes agreements to me, allowing me to use resources as food. He wants to use food as resource, which allows him to just spend the 1 food that he at the moment has just lying around. I was not sure if I should accept it, because while that is very helpful for me, being able to increase my population, there's also the fray coming soon. And with that I might be able to do it anyway, and then the pact doesn't really do anything for me, very likely. I mean, maybe I could even take 3 food from the foray and then increase my population twice, but probably I rather want to have the resources. But I don't know when the foray will be revealed. I also don't know for certain, of course, if I will be part of it. Maybe one of the players will at some point find a way to get more strength, and so I think it's the correct choice to accept this pact here, making sure that I will be able to increase my population if it is needed. Tim starts going for the alchemy. He has seeded the scientific breakthrough, so I think that makes sense. He takes the Code of Laws, goes for another alchemy upgrade, and then interestingly he doesn't take the reserves, which potentially could allow him to already finish the Forbidden City at the next turn, but instead he just builds a step, plays it more civil action efficiently. I this turn seed the immigration into the deck, and the historic territory is revealed, which you can see I'm actually able to win here. I wasn't even sure if I should bid for it, because it doesn't really give me any big benefits for now. It's maybe even a bit of a burden, me having to rebuild a warrior, but at least I have the patriotism in hand, and I think I wasn't willing to bid all of my colonization cards, but I felt like if I win it for a relatively cheap price, maybe just for the H1 colonization cards, then the additional happy face in the long run might still be nice to have. The 6 culture at some point, of course, also might be nice to have, and with that I was willing to bid for it at least a little bit, and I'm actually also the one able to win it. And now I can actually increase my population without having to use the pact, so the pact at this point not doing that much for me. I increase my population and I really want to rebuild this unit so that I'm again strong enough to be part of the foray. And now that I will rebuild it, I have now a clear opportunity to play the patriotism. Who knows when will be the next time that I want to increase my strength, so I decided to play the patriotism here. And first I thought, okay, I have the Great Wall, there's a copy of cannons, I have this tactic already drawn, I just have to take the cannons here. At least that's what I thought. But while the cannons might be useful for me at some point, at the moment I don't have any excess population. The Rifleman might actually be the more important card to take for me, but I really want to rebuild this warrior, and I really don't want to rebuild it without a patriotism. And also both Envy and Tim have swordsmen, so I felt like I don't necessarily need to take the Rifleman for 3. And then the cannons, yes, I might need them at some point, and yes, I am taking a risk when I don't take them here. I might miss out on them, but it might really take quite a while until I really need them and can actually use them, with me now having no free population. And instead of the cannons, there are some really valuable yellow cards that I can take, and I could also consider going for an upgrade, giving me 1 additional science, and even more if maybe the scientific breakthrough should be revealed before my next turn. And at the end I felt like I can't miss out on that kind of value, and the cannons just don't give me any boost at the moment, and also no real security for quite some turns. So I was willing to gamble on hopefully getting another copy later on in the game, and instead took the breakthrough and went for an upgrade. I could have taken the Wave of Nationalism, but I felt like I might not be the weakest now for quite a while, and also when I take the Wave of Nationalism I have a full hand. I have now 7 + 4, 11 science, so if a Republic is available on the 3 civil action spot and then I can't go for it because I have to make space in my hand first, it would be quite annoying. Otherwise I think I might have considered taking it here, but here I think it's important that I leave space in my hand. I could also take it instead of the breakthrough, but with it not being completely clear how quickly I will be able to use it, I rather took the guaranteed 3 science, and then I went for the upgrade so I can go for Republic at the next turn, even without having to play the cultural heritage, and if the scientific breakthrough is revealed, I also will be able to go for the Conmon. I draw some more cards. ERock goes for the bread and circuses, builds an arena, has no more happy faces, takes the reserves and a Wave of Nationalism. Interestingly, he doesn't take the cannons, maybe already an indicator that he has drawn an H2 tactic where the cannons aren't required. MV seeds, the scientific breakthrough is revealed, so I just managed to get the alchemies upgraded in time, gaining 4 additional science now. MV has gotten a lot of value out of Barbarossa and is willing to replace him now with Nobel. Could have even gone for another activation and then disbanded the unit, but it would cost him some H2 draws, and so he rather doesn't want to do it and goes for another iron upgrade. He also doesn't take the cannons, so the cannons really aren't respected here so far. Let's see if Tim will take them. Tim seeds, the foray is revealed. Also, I again forgot to mention what my opponent seeded. MV put a Cold War into the deck, and Tim now a strategic territory 1. The foray is revealed. I was very happy that I managed to be part of that. I think that will be quite valuable for me. Tim upgrades the mine, takes the architecture, develops the code of laws, takes the cannons, the patriotism, and the cavalryman, so that looks like a relatively straightforward turn for him. Now it's my turn. I see the freedom of movement. I don't have a clear usage yet, but I have no knowledge about it, which is already worth something. The vast territory is revealed. I was willing to bid an army in my card, but that's not enough to win it. MV wins it, but at least he has to pay quite a price for it with the 2 swordsmen and 1 colonization card. And this turn I will go for the Conmon. I think I can't allow myself to be stuck on 4 civil actions for longer. With having Warfare and the Colosseum, I think maybe I would have preferred a Republic, but I won't say no to this Conmon. I will take it, I will develop it. I have 3 civil actions left. I indeed got the Rifleman that I didn't take at a turn before. Again, I could have taken cannons for 3, but the riflemen I think are just way more important. Getting the Conmon is important, and then I can't get the cannons here, even though now of course it gets more and more risky that I might miss out in the last copy. And then I have 2 civil actions left, which I will use to just take the selective breeding here, securing myself my food upgrades. I draw some cards here. I think I might have also a little bit considered a railroad, but I think those cards are just more important here. ERock takes the scientific method. He could even go for Newton with that here, but instead decides to go for Robespierre, a decision that I respect, because if he gets the Republic soon, that is just a boost that will be even stronger than having Newton here, and he can keep the additional military action strength of Joan of Arc for now. MV reveals the fortifications tactic, so this turn he certainly will take the cannons. He takes them, develops them, builds one, builds another one, is now the strength leader, puts some pressure on the other players, takes the strategy, will have just enough science to develop that at the next turn. Luckily for all of us, he doesn't have enough resources to go for 2 cannons, otherwise he would be very threatening with being able to declare war and building 2 cannons. At least that is what my other opponents might think, or at least that is what ERock might think, but both I and Tim know that that actually the next event in the deck is the new deposits. Wait, I think all players know it, because ERock has seen it with Joan of Arc, so all players, apart from MV, who might be the aggressor himself, know that there are the new deposits coming, which will mean that at the next turn, if those are revealed, MV has enough resources to build 2 more cannons, and if he has a war, and with having the strategy, he is very, very dangerous now, and that's something to be quite afraid of. Tim seeds, puts the Ravages of Time into the deck actually. The new deposits are revealed, and now MV has the resources that he needs to potentially go for quite a devastating war. And now we have to be very careful, and I think Tim makes a bit of a mistake here and is maybe not as careful as it is required here, because he goes for the architecture, finishes the Forbidden City, takes Newton, rich land reserves, plays the patriotism. Interestingly, he doesn't elect Newton here. He could have even saved the civil action by developing the architecture, but maybe wanted to keep Eleanor a bit longer, maybe didn't find a good usage of the additional actions that he would have gotten this turn. He then plays the patriotism, goes for a bit more strength, but he has now, I think, a bit of a problem, and that is that he has only 4 signs available at the next turn. So I think investing into that architecture, while of course understandable, you really want to do it with finishing the Forbidden City, I do think maybe he should have played it a bit more safe here, because if he actually has enough signs to go for either cannons or cavalrymen, he can threaten quite a bit of strength. Like defensive army tactic, 2 of them already would give him a lot of strength and might make him an unattractive target, but here he has only 4 signs available now, and with that, yeah, he could be a bit in danger if MV has a war. Now it's my turn. I see the popularization of science. The crime wave is on top, and at the moment I won't get hit by that. And I will get hit by it. I wouldn't get hit by it after my turns. I really wanted to push here. The crime wave is revealed. I'm not part of that, so that's nice. And now, this turn, I also, of course, knew that things are going to get a bit dangerous. And yeah, the question is how to react to that potential threat of a war. There's also a coal available for me for 1 civil action, normally a thing that I really would like to invest into here, but can I do it here? Should I maybe rather just go for some riflemen, some upgrade, or maybe even start the food production first, as additional population might be extremely helpful? All of those things I considered. But I decided to go for a line where I hope that it does give me quite an economical boost, but hopefully, especially thanks to Tim maybe now being a bit of an attractive target, hopefully might make myself safe enough so that I don't get hit by a war. And that is to indeed go for the coal, go for 1 upgrade, take Maria Theresa, elect her, and go for another upgrade. And I'm taking Maria Theresa here mainly for her additional resources. At the moment I can't increase my population yet, but at some point I definitely want to increase my population. But I get my resource production going now, and I think getting it going now instead of at some point later and doing some other investments is just a big difference. I do think that gives me quite a big boost here. However, going for 1 upgrade would maybe be fine, but going for the 2nd upgrade, I think without Maria Theresa I'm not really able to, and even now it is a bit greedy, because without Maria Theresa I would now be at 7 resources. But with Maria Theresa, I will get 3 additional ones for my military at the next turn, and with that, I have enough resources to, if the last copy of cannon should be on the row, and ERock is the other player who doesn't have cannons, so if he doesn't take it then for 3, if they are revealed immediately after my turn, then MV has to calculate that I might get the cannons, and if I should get the cannons, I could go for the cannons build 2, with the Great Wall that is already giving me some strength in itself, and I could copy to the fortifications tactic, which is actually not giving me a lot of strength, but still maybe in a little bit of additional strength, and so I with that can threaten maybe more strength than Tim, and was hoping that that could lead to MV not choosing me as a war target. So it's a bit of a balancing act here. If I overreact to this potential threat, I mean, I don't even know if MV has a war, so I think you have to be careful to not overreact, but you have to have it in mind, which is why I was willing to replace Nostradamus here, as I felt like the additional resources for the military might be extremely useful very soon. So despite maybe keeping Nostradamus would have also provided some value, at least I replace him now just after the event deck has flipped, so I have again full knowledge about the next event deck, and at the next turn I will be able to hopefully put Maria's resources to good use. I draw some cards. I draw actually a war, and then the Conquistador's tactic and a wealthy territory too. ERock cedes the strategic territory is revealed. I wasn't willing to sacrifice any of my units here. MV is able to win it. He wins it for a swordsman, and a card replaces the 2 strength of the swordsman with the 2 strength of the colony, and gets 3 additional draws. So if he hadn't a war yet, there's now a chance that he might have gotten one now. ERock plays the reserves for 3 food with the Silk Road bonus to not have any famine. He then takes the Rifleman, develops them, goes for a lot of upgrades, and spends all of his military actions so that maybe at the next turn he can do a revolution with Robespierre if the Republic should be in the row. Now it's Envy's turn. Of course, we are excited if he has a war, and indeed he has one, and I was very, very relieved to see that he didn't choose me as a war target, instead goes against Tim, who, yeah, maybe left the guard a little bit off at his during his last turn, when he didn't leave himself with enough signs to threaten to go for any of the military attacks. So Envy develops the strategy here, builds a cannon, builds another cannon, and is now at 33 strength, and that is of course an extremely big war. With the signs that he might steal, there's a chance that maybe he can even get a conman going at the next turn, so he takes that and also takes the team sports. There's Pierre in the game. Tim seeds and opens the Cold War. Sadly, I will not be able to be part of that. ERock and Envy gain some additional signs now, so Envy will now, even without the war, be able to go for the Conmon at the next turn. Tim could, of course, destroy a lot, invest a lot into Swordsman, but I think that would be the correct, not the correct thing to do. Instead, with such a big difference, all of his stuff might be taken away anyway. The Code of Laws can't be taken away because MB has already his own copies, so Tim just makes sure to spend all of his science, and then the architecture plus all of the science that he will produce will be taken away, which is of course quite a big setback. He at least is able to take 2 science yellows to, after the turn, quickly be able to go for some science again, and thanks to the revolutionary idea, he then soon might be able to also go for one of those military attacks again, but at the moment, of course, he got hit quite heavily by this war. Now it's my turn, and as you can see, I actually used my politics phase to offer a promise of military protection to MV. And yeah, I think that's probably the correct thing to do for me. Of course, the war gets even bigger, but it actually doesn't matter. There is not enough for MV to steal, so for the war, the strength doesn't matter. But that is one of the situations where it's just not possible for me to defend myself properly. I can try to do my best to defend myself, but I can't reach numbers to be safe from envy in regards of aggressions and wars. And then what I can do in a 4-player game is just to be a less attractive target than my opponents. So, and no, with that, giving 4 additional strength to Envy just makes it more attractive for him to go against him or ERock with aggressions. And I also gain a bit of culture production on top, so I think it's just a worthwhile pact for me here and might help me to get somehow away with that military push from Envy. I then this turn develop the Rifleman. There are still no cannons on the row, so I go for the Rifleman to be able to use Maria's resources and gain a bit of additional strength. I played a cultural heritage. It might be my last turn in Age 2, and with that I decided to develop the knights here to be able to use them for my Napoleonic army tactic. It's a bit of an investment, and sadly it means that I can't invest into cannons at the next turn, which could make me a bit vulnerable. Maybe I should have just not developed the knights here and waited to be able to copy the fortifications tactic, but with having that many infantry units, the Napoleonic army tactic might be the better one. And also I don't know yet if I get cannons, maybe it could still be worthwhile to have the knights, but here I think maybe I didn't do the correct choice. Maybe I should just hope that I get the cannons. I have relatively good chances if I don't reveal too many cards now this turn, which is what I will do. I have good chances that the card isn't revealed immediately after ERock's turn, after my turn, and then there's a good chance that it will be revealed after ERock's turn before my next turn, and then I could just try to go for the fortifications tactic with my Great Wall. That might be nice anyway, and then I don't spend the science on knights, but here I had this Napoleonic army tactic in hand and kind of felt like I might want to go for that, and it might still work well, but I'm missing 1 science now to go for cannons, and if MV has another war, that could make me a more attractive target, so I'm not sure if going for the Napoleonic army is worthwhile here. On the other hand, with me being willing to commit to the knights, maybe MV thinks that I have a classic army tactic in hand, which again could help me being safe enough. I actually go for some upgrades here, take the reserves, and I even go for another upgrade, and with Maria's resources I would be able to, I have 8, 11, 14 resources, so I could go for 4 knights. That will of course cost helped me a lot. But maybe just being able to threaten that has some worth in itself. So maybe the knights, on the other hand, also in some way help me actually to threaten a bit of strength. So during the game, I kind of felt like I have to develop them, but I think maybe I rather should not spend a science and just go for cannons and try to somehow get into the fortifications tactic. But a bit of a tough choice. I think I take the reserves here just because I think I need every additional resource for the military that I can get, or help to get additional population out. Both might be extremely important. And yeah, with that I take the reserves here, and with that I also make sure that I don't take that many cards from the row. And yeah, so that's my turn. I went for another upgrade to Rifleman, which I'm not sure if it is the correct thing to do, because the reason why I did it is to be safer from an aggression, because now I'm at 19 strength. If MV attacks me, the promise of military protection gets cancelled. He goes to 33, and then with a 14 strength difference, if I have 3 H2 defense cards, I would be able to defend, which is a high number, but not a completely unrealistic number, and that maybe makes me safe from aggression. So there is some value to it. If I wouldn't go for the last upgrade, I would need 4 H2 defense card, which is already a bit more unrealistic. But now the problem is that I'm at 19 strength, and ERock likely won't increase his strength at his next turn. Maybe he will go for the navigation, that's possible. I thought that he might want to do it just to gain some additional strength. But if he doesn't do it, then I won't be one of the 2 weakest at the next turn and won't be able to use Maria's resources. So I think maybe I shouldn't have gone for the last upgrade here, and instead just made it more likely that I can again get 3 additional resources out of Maria at the next turn. So maybe some potential misplays that of course also have their upsides, so hard to say. No, definitely a dangerous situation with MV having that much strength. If I make one mistake and MV feels like I'm not nicely prepared to defend, or then I might get hit by something bad. I draw 3 cards, and I draw the defensive army tactic, and at that point I was very unhappy that I had committed to the knights. Of course I don't know yet if I get the cannons, but yeah, now I'm missing 1 science to go for cannons at the next turn. And yeah, and that could be quite important for the defensive army tactic. ERock replaces John with Robespierre, goes for the Republic Revolution. I think that's just too valuable. He probably just has to do it. Interestingly, then goes for the selective breeding. I thought that maybe he could also consider going for the Ocean Liner service. Maybe he was afraid that he might get hit by an infiltrate and that it just gets removed, and that's of course a valid concern. But yeah, with already being at 1 farm, I felt like the Ocean Liner service is just so strong that maybe it's worth the gamble, and then he could even still use the Engineering Genius with the Silk Road bonus potentially. Instead he goes for a selective breeding farm and takes the Urban Growth, so he doesn't go for navigation here. Meaning that I sadly don't gain 2 additional resources. MV steals all of the science from Tim as well as the architecture, and I was quite a bit afraid. What will MV do? Will he go for an aggression against me? Will he go for a war against me? Maybe I didn't do my best to prepare myself for war this time. And he will go for a war, but it will be against ERock. So ERock doesn't have any additional population, and while he has enough science to go into some military techs, the cannons likely might be taken away from me. There might be some H3 cards already revealed at his turn, so ERock might be able with the wave to go into rockets. Maybe build 2, copy the fortifications tactic, but he would need to destroy 2 things, and maybe MV felt that makes it more like the better target for him, and also he has this pact against me. If he attacks me, he loses actually 4 strength, so maybe the pact did actually play a part in his decision making here. MV goes for the team sports here, upgrades the farm and doesn't increase his strength for now, has already a very high number. He does actually by building the team sports, goes up to 39. Now it's Tim's turn. He will take the Ocean Liner service, takes the selective breeding, takes the architecture, so I mean, it's a bit funny, he just got his architecture stolen. Now he goes the 2nd time for the architecture and is able to take that again. And yeah, he got hit by a very big one, is of course still in a dangerous position, but now he will have 5 science and a revolutionary idea after his turn, so now he can actually threaten to go for some tactics. I know now that MV doesn't have knowledge about a defensive army tactic, so Tim should be at least somewhat safe from another war. Of course, I also know that there's only one H2 war left, but MV soon gets the Colossus draws. Of course, he is still vulnerable to an aggression, but if he gets the Ocean Liner service, he might still have a solid economy to work with and could have still a solid position here. Now H3 starts, and I have to make a choice for my politics phase. Because I've drawn this International Trade Agreement pact, a pact that I of course kind of would like to get going, but if I offer it, the promise of military protection is cancelled, maybe MV, it's a bit more likely that he will try some stuff against me. And also it's the question what I prefer. Do I prefer that MV steals maybe an additional yellow token against ERock or not? First I felt like maybe I don't want to reward MV even more, and maybe that would just strengthen his position too much, but when we take a look at the overview, he is quite a bit behind in culture, he still has only this H1 economy, which isn't too great. He has a lot of action, so his position is not bad, but he has to prove that he can catch up all this culture, especially if he doesn't get an early war over culture. And also, when he steals now a bunch of yellow tokens, I think he has a healthy yellow bank anyways. I felt like if he gets an additional yellow token here, of course it will help him, but it maybe doesn't make the biggest difference. While for ERock, if he loses an additional one, I felt like his problems could just get even bigger, and I felt like that damage might be more than the win for MV. So I felt like maybe it could be fine to keep the pact for longer, so that MV does even more damage to ERock, as maybe for him the yellow token doesn't make that much of a difference, at least maybe. And then also I'm maybe still a bit of a less unattractive target because of the pact and the cancelling of the pact if MV should attack me. But I ended up deciding to go for the International Trade Agreement, and there's a specific reason for it, and that is that I need the one additional food. It's actually extremely important, as we will maybe see at the end of my turn. First of all, H3 starts. I offer the International Trade Agreement pact to ERock. Because now with this war and with Tim getting the Ocean Liner, I kind of felt like ERock might have a bit of more of a challenging position. It's maybe close, but he might also have some issues to invest the resources, while Tim has some clear projects with the Ocean Liner, Happy Face building, but with ERock not getting any additional population, he might have some difficulties to spend the additional resources, so I offer it to him. I take the cannons, and I kind of felt like I need to get my food production starting now. I can't delay it any longer, otherwise I will just have problems because of that. But there's an issue with that, and that is that I go for selective breeding here. I go for 2 upgrades, but now I'm at 0 plus 4 science, so I have only 4 science available. Of course, I have this war over technology, and we went already for 2 wars, so maybe it's not that likely that he has a war, but he could have now also a war over culture drawn. And so I kind of wanted to be prepared as nicely as possible for war, and that means that I need to be able to go for cannons, especially now with having drawn this defensive army tactic. I have Maria Theresa, so if I increase my population, I do gain some additional science, and now as you can see, thanks to the additional food from the International Trade Agreement pact, I have now 5 plus 3 from the reserves, 8 food, which is just enough to increase my population twice, so if MV declares war against me, I can now play the reserves, increase population twice, and go into cannons and for the defensive army tactic. There's a bit of an issue though. I also take the organized religion to fix my happy faces. I already played the reserves for food, as I felt like I kind of want to do this maybe anyway. There's a problem with that though, and that is that I am at 19 strength. ERock, despite getting hit by a war, it's not certain if he will increase his strength, because everything that he might destroy is extremely painful. Maybe he can destroy the religion if he goes for another arena, but it's not enough to overtake me in strength. Tim, if he finishes the Ocean Liner service, likely doesn't overtake me in strength. So I likely have only the +1 resource to work with. I think during the game I somehow felt like ERock might increase his strength just because it seems logical with getting hit by this war, that he might destroy something and build something, but maybe it's just not worthwhile for him. And yeah, so now I sadly might not have enough resources to go for 2 cannons, but I might still be able to go for 1 cannon and then maybe upgrading a warrior to rifleman, and that already is giving me a helpful amount of strength with the defensive army tactics. So that's a bit of an issue now that I'm at 19 strength, but I think I still have to play it that way, as getting the cannon out is just extremely important, and with that it was, I think, extremely important to offer this international trade agreement here. I draw 3 impacts: agriculture, variety, and happiness. ERock goes for the Statue of Liberty. He soon will lose a bunch of yellow tokens, but at least he, with gaining now 3, he makes sure to still have a somewhat usable yellow bank. He then takes the air forces and increases his population. And that means that MV steals 4 yellow tokens now. If the pact wouldn't have been cancelled, he would have even stolen a 5. And now again, it was exciting to see what does MV do during his politics phase. I was really hoping to not get hit by anything bad, but this time I'm the one who gets hit by something. MV already declared a war against Tim and ERock, and he tries to make it fair, and I'm now the target. And now, of course, I was really happy that I at least made sure to be able to go for the cannons. If I wouldn't have done that, the war could have been a lot more disastrous now, but it will still be quite the setback, or quite annoying to get hit by that war. And we takes the cavalryman, maybe for H3 tactics, takes the efficient IF upgrade, another efficient upgrade of frugality, just takes a bunch of cards, and then builds another cannon to go even up to 38 strength. And it's Tim's turn, and now it was actually the time that Tim resigns. It was the time when Tim resigned from all of the games, apart from the other 4-player game where the time ran out and then a bot took over. And if you remember the last 4-player game, there, because of the abandonment or resignation, Tim didn't take the professional spots. Maybe he wouldn't have taken them anyway, but if he would have taken them, which I thought he maybe would do, then my hybrid war against Envy would have been a lot more annoying for Envy to deal with, and because of that, I in the other game was of course quite annoyed about Tim abandoning at this point. But at least it is somewhat fair, because in this game Envy is declaring war against me, and maybe you, I'm not sure if you realize it immediately why this resignation is so important here. Maybe you can think about it for a moment, what changes now. Because this resignation actually helps me a lot. So with that, it somewhat balances itself out. Still hard to say who benefited more. Maybe I benefit more in this game than Envy benefited in the other one, especially with Envy finishing 3rd in the other one anyway. But here Tim resigns, and that of course means that this game is considered now a 3-player game, and that of course means that out of the sudden I am gaining 3 additional resources from Maria, which Envy probably didn't take into account, because it was, I think, quite unlikely that Tim would have gotten stronger during his turn. So quite unfortunately for Envy, I have now a bit more to work with than I otherwise would have been. So now we are at my turn, and I have a difficult decision to make, because the decision is if I want to seed. There's one event in there that would be disastrous, but there's also one event in there that actually would, now that I get the 3 additional resources from Maria, would be able to let me win the war even. And that event is the freedom of movement. I could put an alchemy into rifleman, which is of course a bit of a cost, but then I could build 2 cannons, play the defensive army tactic, and I could actually win the war, and I would definitely do it if I would have the option to do it. But there's also a very bad event in there, at least to see it revealed now, and that's the Ravages of Time. I'm not sure if I mentioned it, but Tim pushed the Ravages of Time. It's the last event that I saw with Nostradamus. And if that event should be revealed, then I lose the Colosseum, and losing that happy face right now would be quite a disaster. I might need to destroy a mine and an alchemy maybe now, and that would just be extremely bad. So it's the question, do I want to risk it? I have one big reward in there, but also one very big punish. Then there's also a slight reward in there, because at the moment I don't get hit by the immigration that I've seeded earlier, but after my turn I will be, so that also would be kind of nice to see revealed now. So it's the question, do I want to take my chances here, and I decided to indeed take my chances, especially with at least there also being the immigration, which could be quite nice to see revealed now. I was willing to push, but I was of course very much afraid because there's a 25% chance that I just get completely screwed here, but also a 25% chance that I actually win the war, which I think is also quite a game changer. So hard to say if it is worth it, but I decided to push the impact of agriculture, and let's see what will be revealed. It's actually neither one of the three events that I just talked you through, but instead the last remaining one, the popularization of science. Sadly, none of the two events that were helpful for me are revealed, but at least also not a completely bad one. So I at least get away with it in that sense. And maybe that would have been a bit of too hard of a punish if MV declares the war against me, then Tim out of the sudden resigns, I gain additional resources, and then the freedom of movement is revealed. That, of course, would have been quite unfortunate for him. So maybe it's somewhat fair that this didn't happen. I increased my population twice, which gives me the science to go for the cannons. I developed the cannons, and thanks to this game now being a 3-player game, I can build not only one, but even 2 cannons, destroying a mine, which is a bit costly, but at least I am still at 6 resource production, and then I reveal the defensive army tactic, which puts me at 32 strength, so I will actually still lose 2 yellow tokens. That war is still doing some damage to me, but it could have done a lot more damage to me if I wouldn't have gotten the additional resources. And also I was very happy that I had drawn this tactic, because without a tactic I also again might have, the war would have damaged me more. I have now a bit of an issue, because I will lose 2 yellow tokens, and if the Ravages of Time is revealed before my next turn, I lose another happy phase, and out of the sudden I have quite some happy phase issues, and sadly I'm missing 1 resource now. Wait. No, yes, I'm missing 1 resource to build an organized religion. And I could take the efficient upgrade, which would allow me to build an HA religion and then upgrade it to organized religion. So, now that could be something to do. Also, I almost forgot to mention it, but another consideration about my decision to seed is that if I don't seed, I could declare a war over culture against ERock. And I don't remember everything in details, but I think I miss out on some draws, and the upside of the freedom of movement would be quite nice, but I mean, there was also the danger of the Ravages of Time. I don't remember exactly my considerations about ERock's potential to gain some additional strength. There might be a chance he does a fundamentalism revolution, goes for another rifleman. I felt like, if I remembered correctly, he had ways, expensive ways. Also, he could go for air forces, maybe build 2, which gives him actually 14 strength and is already enough to tie me. It would cause even more distraction for him, but I wouldn't gain anything out of it. But that also was an important consideration for my turn. And yeah, but let's go back to the turn. I could take the efficient upgrade, but with this military pressure that is still going on, I really didn't want to miss out on the military buildup. I was just hoping that I might find just any way to deal with the potential happy phase loss of the Colosseum, and one way is actually on the row. Steve Jobs, even though only giving me 1 happy phase, could be quite a help for me. And with that, I felt like with at least Steve Jobs coming down the row, and ERock maybe rather taking Einstein than Steve Jobs, even though he could maybe also want to have the happy phases, I was willing to not take the efficient upgrade to secure myself the military build-up for 1 resource, for 1 civil action. I have 1 civil action left then. And here I mainly considered engineering genius and civil service. The civil service at some point could be useful technology, but for now I really can't invest into it. So I felt like, do I really need to take this, or do I rather want to have the engineering genius, which could potentially make it a lot more easily to go for wonder like fast food chains or United Nations. And so I ended up taking the engineering genius, but we will see that maybe at the end I rather would have liked to have the civil service available, but I think the game can certainly go in a way where the engineering genius could be the more useful card, if I maybe at some point am able to take one of those wonders and then actually get 4 resources out of it, which then could be a huge deal. So I was willing to take it here over the civil service. I draw 3 cards, thanks to not going for the war, and I actually draw 3 H3 defense cards, so that's a bit of a crazy draw. It's ERock's turn. He seeds and opens the immigration. We both have a unhappy worker and lose one now, so that's a bit annoying. He takes the tanks, develops the tanks, disbands the rifleman, disbands a mine. Is now it dropped down to 5 resource income. Plays the Wave of Nationalism with the Silk Road bonus for 7 resources, which is just the amount he needs to go for another tank. And now we can maybe see why ERock early on didn't take the cannons. Maybe he had already at this point a classic army tactic available and now finally is able to deploy it. And then he takes the civil service himself. Now it's Envy's turn. He steals 2 yellow tokens from me. Tries a raid against ERock, but it fails. He then goes for Pierre, takes the International Red Cross and the Modern Infantry, develops the Modern Infantry and builds one to get out of corruption. It costs him a draw, but yeah, getting out of corruption is of course worth something. Him investing into the Modern Infantry is a big sign that he has either entrenchments or the positional army tactic. Otherwise, I think it wouldn't make too much sense to do this investment. He's now at 43 strength, so still applying some pressure here. Now it's my turn, and I could see it here, but again, the Ravages of Time, if those should be revealed, would make my turn quite awkward, because now with it not being revealed, I can actually go for Steve Jobs. I will lose this population to the immigration. I have an uprising issue, but the one happy face from Steve Jobs makes me is fine, at least for now. But if I lose another happy face, then I have quite the severe uprising issue. So I felt like I really can't push here. And so this time I actually decided to go for it and declared a war over technology against ERock. I can get an upgrade going for free thanks to Maria's additional resources. I have now 8 more strength than ERock, and ERock has only 5 resources to work with. And now it's a war that I thought I might not be able to win by a lot, or maybe not, or it could even end in a tie, because ERock has this urban growth with the Silk Road bonus and can go into professional sports. So you could, for example, build a professional sports, has still 3 resources left, could go for another arena, is already at +5 strength, or could go for an upgrade, which for free actually, could build another rifleman, then he would be at +6 strength. And there could also be, and he could also actually do no, I will actually take the fundamentalism away, but and there is one of the 2 remaining events is also the freedom of movement, so that could be revealed. Maybe he could put something like an iron mine into tanks, and then he could still go for an upgrade. And then I'm not sure if I overlooked something during the game, but I kind of felt like even then he can only tie me. But when I now took a look at the game again, I think he could even win the war then. And losing some science is actually quite bad, but it's not certain that this will be revealed. He has only 2 cards in hand. It's possible that he even can't push, and even if he pushes, it's only 50-50 that the freedom of movement will be revealed. And without the freedom of movement, he definitely can't win the war. I mean, there might be some ways. Then I was hoping that it just does some more disruption damage to him. And with that I was willing to declare this war. I don't miss out on any draws. And then, as you can see, I need a happy face now, and there is Steve Jobs to provide me that happy face. So I again go for Steve Jobs, like in the last game. Again, his happy face being quite relevant. And then I have still 5 civil actions left. I kind of would like to take the fast food chains here, but I think I need to go for those computers here, because Steve Jobs has the potential to be quite a useful leader for me here. Because soon I will lose the Colosseum, and soon I really will need more happy faces. And now I think it's extremely useful that Steve Jobs will allow me to go for computers and fix my happy faces and my economy, or not fix, but allows me to fix my happy faces and to improve my economy further in just one single thing. So me not having to go for organized religion and then later on also maybe for computers, and instead just being able to go for computers, be fine with the happy faces and get some more science production going, which might be rewarded by impacts and just might improve my position generally. I felt like it's just, yeah, that I need to go for that, and Steve Jobs has the potential to be quite a strong leader here for me already this turn. Of course, he is saving me from a lot of trouble. And then I have 3 civil actions left, so I can't take the fast food chains now. I felt like I really need the efficient upgrade, the 4 additional resource for only 1 action, and I kind of need to go for computers at the next turn, will just be very worthwhile. Then I thought about taking the revolutionary idea. The thing is, MV has taken the red cross, and I kind of would like to build a step of it, because he can only build 3 steps. If I don't build a step now, then, I mean, ERock also can't build a step. MV can then potentially build 3 steps, then maybe at my next turn I can build a step, and then ERock has 3 food saved up, and he might then be able to build a step. So, and if I build a step now, then ERock can't build a step, MV builds 3 steps likely, and I can finish the red cross. So if I build a step now, I can actually get 2 steps, and it is quite a bit of a culture swing against my opponents. And with that, I kind of wanted to do the step, and at least that then allows me to take the fundamentalism, which potentially could help ERock maybe do something in the war. For example, go for revolution and get another tank with the freedom of movement. So I felt like I really need to remove this potential 6 strength from him. And yeah, with that I go for that, and with that I also was willing to go for the war. I draw some cards, and I was very relieved to see the positional army tactic, which really helps me with my strength potential, and I also draw an impact of strength together with it, so I was quite happy about those draws. I was hoping that ERock doesn't see it. He indeed doesn't see it, but there is a card revealed that actually helps him with the amount of strength that he can go for, and that is Marie Curie. He will take Marie Curie, destroys an HA religion, builds an additional rifleman, replaces, after having used Robespierre military action, replaces him with Marie Curie, and then, thanks to the urban growth with the Silk Road bonus, he can go for an upgrade and is now at 37 strength, so he's actually able to tie me in the war, but he needed to destroy another thing. All of his actions, almost all of his actions were forced, so I still think this war ended up being nice for me, but maybe it was a bit riskier than I thought during the game. MV seats and the freedom of movement is revealed, so that event would have been on top. MV moves a cannons into the team spots for Pierre, another indication that probably he has an H3 tactic drawn, and with me having drawn the positional army tactic, it makes it quite likely that the tactic that he is having now is the entrenchments tactic. MV then plays the frugality, builds another arena with Pierre, going up to 42 strength, takes a copy of Air Forces, takes the reserves, and then builds 3 steps with the architecture from the Red Cross. With him going heavily into arenas, even moving a unit away from to get another arena, building on the Red Cross, it kinda, when you don't take a close look at it, looks like, okay, he has kinda committed to a more peaceful route now and isn't really wanting to go for war, but thinking that could be a big mistake, because when we take a look at what he can do here, he has at the moment 2 fortifications tactics, but he has the reserves. He has 7 plus 4, 11 resources. That's just enough to build an air force and upgrade a swordsman to modern infantry. With all the actions that he has done, it's looking extremely likely that he might have an entrenchments tactic. And if he has the tactic, he has just enough military actions to declare war, build an air force, upgrade his unit, and reveal the entrenchments tactic, gaining 27 strength out of the tactic instead of only 10, and also of course some additional strength from the units that he is building or upgrading. And then out of the sudden I think he can go up to something like 65 strength. And so he definitely is still very dangerous in regards of military, and maybe even try to hide that a little bit through to going for a bit of a more culture heavy turn here. I don't steal any signs from ERock. Interestingly, all of the H2 wars have been played during this game. And as you can see, I actually was willing to cede the impact of strength, maybe a bit ambitious, but I have the positional army tactic, and so I was kinda hoping that maybe I will be able to have a good situation for that. Maybe I will only be the 2nd strongest, but with getting 3 culture for seeding it, I was at the end willing to do it. I will fix my happy faces this turn anyway, so now it might even be good to lose the Colosseum right now to at least gain 2 additional culture income. But it's a bit tricky. Maybe I should have just seeded the impact of happiness, but likely that won't do that much, because ERock might go for another arena at some point. MV has already maxed out happy faces anyway, so I was willing to go for a bit of a gamble here. The Ravages of Time is revealed. I also kind of wanted to see that because it costs ERock his Silk Road, otherwise maybe he would have been able to keep that for another turn. And Ravages of Time is revealed now. I finished the Red Cross, so I gained 12 culture out of participating on that and have now a bit of a culture lead. I developed the computers with Steve Jobs, gaining 4 additional culture. I upgraded one computer, and I even upgrade another computer, and that is somewhat relevant. And maybe you noticed something, because the freedom of movement was of course revealed, not at my turn, but at MV's turn. And first I thought, I don't really have a way to use it. I have 2 farms, 2 mines, 2 labs, my units, just everything is rightly in place, but I do think it's actually extremely important that I indeed use the freedom of movement here. And as you maybe noticed, I used it to put a rifleman into cannons, which costs me a tactic at the moment. And it also doesn't really help me to get into the positional army tactic, because to go for 2 tactics I would have needed 4 riflemen anyway. But I think here it is important to drop down in strength, because when I took a look at my turn, I realized that, as I already told you, MV is still quite threatening militarily. And with that, I need to be very careful. I have this military build-up in hand. If I keep the rifleman and don't put it into cannons, I'm at 37 strength. I thought that ERock is quite unlikely to increase his strength, because he just doesn't have the population to do it. And with that, if I don't change my units now, I might only be able to use the military build-up for 5 resources at the next turn instead of the full 10. And gaining the full 10 resources might be extremely important in order to be prepared in case MV declares a war against me. And I now, even if I should get the 10 additional resources, have a way to actually be completely safe from a war. And with my last 2 actions I will take the satellites for some additional strength and the modern infantry, but the modern infantry is actually the technology that is especially important. With playing the military build-up, I have 21 resources at the next turn, or 20 when I use Steve Jobs, but of course I'm not forced to do that. And then I can develop the modern infantry, build a cannon and a modern infantry for 12 resources, and I can copy the I can play the tactic, and then I still have 2 military actions left to potentially upgrade to riflemen to modern infantry, but that wouldn't be enough to win a war. But if I'm willing to destroy a little bit, I could even build a 5th modern infantry and still go for an upgrade when I don't use Steve Jobs. Then that costs me 14 plus 2, 16 plus 1 cannon, 21 resources, just the amount that I have, and then I would actually be able to win the war against MV. So yeah, with that I felt like hopefully I should be somewhat safe. Me moving this rifleman to cannons might also be an indicator for MV that I have this tactic available that I can't reveal yet, because I need to stay on lower strength so that I can use the military build-up for its full value. And so it's also important that I go for both computer upgrades so that I have enough science to develop the modern infantry at my next turn. So again, like in the turns before, I need to be very careful here to not get punished by MV militarily. I draw some cards here. 2 wars, which I was happy to see, because I do have some strength potential. The impact of culture might be a bit tricky to pull off though. ERock seeds the prosperity is revealed. That will allow me to increase my population an additional time at the next turn, which will be very relevant, as we will see. ERock destroys the Silk Road, takes the patriotism, the urban growth, increases his population, and takes the computers. And MV does actually go for a war against me. Maybe he could have also gone against ERock, but decides to rather hit me with a war. He develops the air forces, increases his population, builds one, plays the reserves, upgrades the swordsman to modern infantry, and indeed he has the entrenchments tactic and is now at 65 strength, takes the reserves for even more resources, and which allows him to actually build another air force at the next turn, maybe an indicator that he has even an additional war to work with. And now it's my turn. I don't use my politics phase because my impact is bad and I can't declare war now while also defending myself. But I was happy to have those wars because I will do quite some heavy investment into my military now. But that investment might still pay off with me being able to go for a war at the upcoming turn potentially. So I don't push. Instead, I use the military build-up, increasing my population. I take the rockets. When I played the turn before, I of course planned about defending myself with the modern infantry, and I also actually my first turns that I played out I used the modern infantry, then I was done with defending myself and I had the civil action left over, and I thought, oh, how do I want to use the civil action? Maybe I will just take the rockets as it is a cheap technology, and will maybe allows me to go for some Nobel prizes, maybe being able to upgrade some cannons as well might be nice as well. But then I of course realized that if I might take the rockets anyway, then of course it makes more sense to go for the rockets now instead of the modern infantry, because those are cheaper and again leave me with more science left. So I developed the rockets without using Steve Jobs, increasing my population. Thanks to the prosperity I can get 2 population like that. I build a rocket, I build a rifleman, and then I played a tactic, being at 59 strength. Just doing 2 upgrades is not enough to win the war, and while it is painful to destroy a farm, especially because I actually have seen the impact of agriculture in there, I think it is worthwhile winning this war against MV, building another rocket and upgrading another cannons to rocket, putting me at 67 strength, and yeah, actually winning the war. So MV took a little bit of a risk with going for the war against me, and I'm not sure if we calculated it correctly, because with my moves I think I really made it look like I have the positional army tactic, and yeah, now he actually loses the war. Of course it costs me something, so maybe it is still in some regards worthwhile for him, but maybe he could have also hit ERock, who then of course potentially could have just resigned. So it's a tough question. Maybe it was worth the risk, me not having the positional army tactic. And yeah, so I am actually able to win this war, and I have my own war still in hand that I hopefully will be able to deploy at the next turn against ERock. There might be Olympic Games ongoing potentially, but even then it might be worthwhile. ERock cedes, the developed territory is revealed as MV and I are in a war. We both don't bid for it. ERock wins it, but he still loses a rifleman, and with him still being under military pressure, that is a bit of a cost for him, but it also allows him something, because now he can develop the air forces, and he this turn already, and he has with the revolutionary idea even enough science for the rockets, and him taking the rockets for 3 makes it really look like he has a modern army tactic, which is probably the best way to defend himself, and then winning the territory should definitely be worthwhile. Maybe it's only a bluff, but even then it could be worthwhile. MV's war will now be evaluated. I actually steal 7 culture from him. I was very happy that I was able to win this war, drawing the positional army tactic as well as drawing the defensive army tactic. Both were very important, so I got a bit lucky with my draws here. And now, then I was of course interested to see what will MV do during his politics phase, and he will go for another war, but this time against ERock. This time ERock won't be able to resign at his turn, and he declares a war against him. He plays the reserves, builds another air force, is now at 79 strength, takes the revolutionary idea, the multimedia, the urban growth. Interestingly, he could have built another swordsman here for 2 additional strength for the war, but decides against it to maybe build something different during his last turn. Now the age ends, so I won't get any additional draws. And the age ending is also a bit annoying for me, because I was thinking that if I go for the war, maybe I will even just do a fundamentalism revolution and upgrade 2 cannons to rockets for the maximum amount of strength that I can gain. But now that would cause an uprising, which I don't want to have. I mean, could even consider it, but I think it wouldn't be ideal. So now I will still go for a war against ERock, so that just both I and MV will steal a lot of culture from him. I will upgrade my cannons to rockets, going up to 71 strength, but instead of doing a fundamentalism revolution, I will develop the satellites, this time again using Steve Jobs, but then to not have an uprising, I have to destroy mine, so my economy is sadly a bit crippled, but winning the war against MV and now winning another war against ERock should certainly make that be worth it. I then take the reserves and the revolutionary idea and the tanks. That just allows me to, with the revolutionary idea, develop both tanks and modern infantry, gaining another 8 culture from Steve Jobs and another 4 culture from the Nobel Prize. And then with the reserves, I have 6 resources left, which allows me to go for 3 upgrades from rifleman to modern infantry, which then at least gives me a chance that I might still win the impact of strength that I've seeded earlier. Now I was interested to see if ERock indeed has the modern army tactic, but at this point it is not that relevant, because regardless of how well he can defend, Envy will always just steal 5 more culture than I do, so if ERock doesn't defend well, then we just both gain a lot of culture. If he defends well, then we both gain not so much culture. That of course would then be good for ERock, but ERock might be a bit in a challenging situation now anyway. ERock plays the Revolutionary Idea, goes for the rockets, plays the Patriotism, plays another Patriotism, and then goes for 2 rockets. I think that's just about the maximum that he can do. And then he has indeed the modern army tactic available, so he reached a decent amount of strength, but he will still lose 2 wars, and with that is in a tough position. But let's see if he is completely out of the game. Envy steals 20 culture from him, declares the Olympic Games, seeds an impact into the deck. I was very happy to see that the impact of strength wasn't revealed yet. Instead, the impact of agriculture is revealed, that I potentially could have also still fixed if maybe impact of strength would have been out. But now that one is out, and sadly my own impact turns out to be bad for me. Envy plays the Revolutionary Idea, goes for the multimedia, builds one, and now we can see that he maybe didn't build a swordsman to now build a religion. Maybe a bit questionable, because that only scores him 1 culture and gives him +2 for the impact of variety. For the impact of culture, it likely doesn't make a difference, so I'm not sure if it maybe wouldn't have been just better to build a swordsman for the war, gain 2 culture from there, and also actually make it more difficult for me to win the impact of strength, because if Envy would now be at 81 strength, it would be a lot more challenging for me. I could actually still win the impact of strength, but only if I don't use Steve Jobs at all and just develop the 2 technologies without them. So while I could still swing the impact of strength around, it would cost me 8 culture from Steve Jobs. And I do think, of course, Envy doesn't have knowledge about those impacts, but with also potentially just getting 2 more culture for the war. Maybe he was hoping for some draw still, I don't know. And that, of course, could be a reason to not build a swordsman at a turn before. But yeah, and I'm not sure if this religion, compared to just building a swordsman at a turn earlier, is worthwhile. Maybe he just wanted to also be more flexible. Maybe there were other things that he wanted to leave himself open for. He takes some technologies. I don't use my politics phase because I only can play a blunder, but the Olympic Games are ongoing. I steal 15 culture from ERock, play the Revolutionary Idea, and now everything comes together quite well for me. I can develop 2 technologies with Steve Jobs. Now the Colosseum would have been quite worthwhile again, but even now it's quite nice that I gain 12 culture just for developing those technologies, and then I have just enough resources to go for 3 upgrades, which gives me just enough strength to win the impact of strength over Envy. So that's my last turn. And now it's ERock's last turn. He seeds an impact. Impact of industry is revealed, which is not the greatest for me, but also not a really bad one. ERock this turn will go for building a professional sports, upgrading a lab to computers, which also gives him 1 additional culture income with Marie Curie. And then before the final impacts, we can see that ERock is indeed now probably too much behind in order to still catch up. But between me and Envy, it might actually be quite close. I have, of course, a bit of a significant lead with 22 culture, and luckily I also know that I will win the impact of strength. But there are definitely some impacts that I would score quite badly in, so I was still a bit worried that Envy might be able to catch up to me. And the first impact that we see is the impact of balance, giving Envy +2 against me. The next one is the impact of architecture, giving Envy +5 against me, so he is starting to catch up here. Then there's the impact of population, and that's the point where I really started to get worried, because he is now only 1 point behind me. Then we have my impact of strength, so that's the good impact that I had knowledge about, where I was also quite happy that that one wasn't revealed during Envy's turn. Then there's the impact of technology, and now I was very relieved, because that's actually quite a good one for me, probably seeded by ERock, and now gives me quite a boost against Envy. And the last impact is the impact of competition, which also is a perfectly fine impact for me. Actually improved that one also with those upgrades during my last turn. It's very similar for all of the players, and with that I am actually able to win this game before Envy. And it could have been a lot closer if maybe Envy would have gone for the swordsman, would have gotten 2 more culture out of the war, and would have maybe forced me to not use Steve Jobs. I think I might still be able to win it. But it could have also, of course, been that Envy revealed the impact of strength during his turn when I was still weaker. But then I might, instead of those upgrades, maybe been able to build an additional farm, which then again cost me maybe some points for the impact of competition. So it could have gotten closer. Yeah, but I have a little bit of a buffer. And yeah, I think it was quite an interesting game. MV put a lot of military pressure on all of us. All 4 H2 wars were played. In all of the turns I had to be extremely careful. I think in some turns I was very careful. Offering that international trade agreement was very, very relevant. Making sure that I can go for this modern infantry, or at the end it turned out to be a rockets defend, was very relevant, allowing me to actually win the war. But I think there was also one turn where I developed the knights and upgraded a lot of riflemen so that I didn't gain additional resource from area, where I'm really not sure if I played it correctly. But overall, I managed to not get damaged too much by MV, and then just managed to keep my lead at the end. But it was quite close, and MV did a nice job of putting a lot of military pressure on us, and and then also making a nice transition into Pierre. So, yeah. And this time, of course, I got favored quite heavily by Tim's resignation, with Maria giving me 3 additional resources. And this game was quite close, so it could very well be that I overall got favored more by those dropouts, because in the other game where MV got favored, he finished 3rd anyway, while here maybe it could have made a difference between MV or me getting in 1st, or maybe there's even a chance I could finish last. Generally, this game was on a knife's edge, certainly, because Tim, when he maybe would have left himself with more signs before the turn where MV declared his first war, who knows, maybe I would have been the target then, and I could have gotten hit by the first war over technology, and that could have maybe had some devastating consequences for me. So I think this game also easily could have ended in a loss for me, and I at some points during the game got quite a bit lucky so that I actually was able to win this, also with drawing the right tactics. Nonetheless, I'm of course very happy that I was able to win this game. Those will be some important points for me. And speaking of points, we can maybe take a look at the standings now after the first 2 4-player games being finished. And here we can see the standings, and thanks to being able to win the last game that we just saw, I'm now in the lead with 9 points, but ERock, with being able to win the first game, is in the 2nd place, 2 points behind me. MV didn't have the ideal start, but with 4 points also is in the running. Tim dropped out from the stage of the tournament and will not be a part of the 3-player games. There will just 3 3-player games be played between me, MV, and ERock. And so here we can basically ignore the standings, but between me, ERock, and MV, everything is of course still open, but with that win I have a bit of an advantage now, which I'm very happy about. Alright, with that we are at the end of the video. I hope it was an exciting game for you. I do think it was actually quite an interesting game with lots of interesting stuff going on, so you can leave a comment and maybe let me know if you would have played something different, or maybe a moment that you found especially interesting. And yeah, then I say thanks for watching, have a nice time, and see you in the next video.